Welcome to the Women Leaders Association Daily Member Podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland. And in each Daily Member Podcast, we will pick out a great speaker from one of our meetings that we thought you would enjoy. You can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or find a networking group near you, or if you just need access to the membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Now let's tune in for this incredible message.
Well, thank you, everyone. And I'm really excited. This is my first time joining one of the Charlotte Women Leadership workshops. So today I was asked to talk about personal branding, and personal branding is something that hopefully I'm not the only one that's had this challenge of really being able to continue to evolve my personal brand, not only professionally, but how I show up personally in my community, and then how do I bring that all together? So hopefully today you'll be able to learn a little bit more on how you can create that personal brand for yourself as well. So on the next slide, again, I want to just say thank you, like huge thank you. This is such an honor to be part of this group. I've lived in the Charlotte area for about 13 years. And so I'm really excited to hopefully get to know more of you, whether it's virtually or maybe there's even a coffee chat in our future. But again, thank you, Ginger and Shelley, for reaching out and bringing me onto this workshop today. And so to walk a little bit into the agenda and what we'll cover today, you can flip to the next slide. And first, I will give you a little bit more introduction of who I am. We will then go into why do you need a personal brand? So we can just validate, is this something that we really need? Why do we need it? And then, of course, where do you start? And then finally, I'll leave with some next steps that hopefully you guys can all take away, work on at your leisure, or maybe with some teammates as well. So to jump in a bit about me, I've divided it up into 3 different areas, professional, community, and personal. Today, I work at Salesforce. I am a director of product marketing for our marketing technology. I've been there for about 7 years. I've been working remote the whole time of that 7 years as well. So definitely adds a different lens for when you're trying to build your personal brand, when you may not be seeing your colleagues or your boss or your skip levels. So definitely has been a process on building that personal brand. But some of the things that I do at Salesforce is specifically around messaging and positioning of marketing technology, which hopefully many of you in your professional careers are leveraging marketing technology, but I'm working through on what are business use cases that marketing technology can use to create the best customer experience for every brand around the world. So that's what I'm doing professionally today. And then in the community, one of the things that I've also been doing for several years is I'm part of the Girls on the Run organization that was actually started right here in Charlotte. So I started as a coach for Girls on the Run. I moved up to the board, and currently I'm holding the executive chair role for Girls on the Run. So a lot of fun things that we've done in this cohort of Girls on the Run. One that I'm probably most proud of is that 5 years ago, we started a annual sneaker soiree where we have a fundraising gala to really be our main key event to bring in community members to help support Girls on the Run. And then finally, personally, I live on Lake Norman in Cornelius. I'm married to my husband for the last 5 years, and we have a miniature dachshund named Basa, which is short for Kabasa. So hopefully you all got a chuckle out of that since she's a sausage dog. So that's a little bit more about me. And then on the next slide, we're just going to start with personal brand. And I don't know if people are close to the chat, but I just posted in here some images of people, women specifically, when I think of strong personal brands, who comes to mind for me. So you'll see I have Michelle Obama in here, and Abby Wambach, and Reese Witherspoon, also Sarah Blakely. Sarah Blakely was the CEO of Spanx. She's very active in social and, of course, not only as a corporate woman, but as a mom and also very much in the community as well. So she's someone that I definitely, and she's fun if you guys don't follow her already. So I think this just shows like a lot of different brands of what women have done so far, of what they stand for, not only professionally, but personally and how they show up in their community as well. And so, yes, so that's what we're here today. So, of course, we see all of these other women with these strong personal brands, curious maybe on how they've created, how could you do the same? And really, it's just getting started. I think you could take a peek or, a step into each one of those areas and start building that brand, but you've got this. We can each do this. We are clearly all here today. So we have a interest and continue to evolve and build and grow, not only professionally, but personally. So I definitely know that you each have your unique personal brand too, that I hope someday I get to learn more about each of you. So to think about just the evolution of this, going to the next slide, you can think back to maybe the past. So why do you need this personal brand? And so going through this, I went through the exercise of like, well, what was it like before? And what do we need to be like today? So on the next slide, I just did a quick from and to of where people are at. So one of the things definitely with social media before professionally, people only heard our words. So, employers, friends, colleagues, when they were interacting with us, it was typically always face to face. So they were hearing our words and how we were representing ourselves. And really what we were telling them is what they took in as elements of who we are. Well, today we need proof because we are in many different mediums. We are showing up in a lot of different places. And oftentimes people want to see beyond your words to say, okay, what else has Rachel Meyers done? How has she shown up in her community? How does she show up at work? And what does that look like? So really being able to create some of those proof points, if you will, or even showcasing some of the things that you've done in a different way than just with your words. And then the next is really around generalize to specialize. And how I think about this is, you're working at a certain place, you're marketing, or you're in an operations role or a technology role. And we all know that as we go through that, you can know a little bit about everything, but at some point it really provides some extra value when you can go in and specialize and focus in on certain skills that are really unique to you. Because when you're doing general, it might not necessarily be unique to you. And where we're trying to go is really being able to create that specialization to pull out what is unique to what you bring to your professional community and personal brand. And then the way we do this, or the way I've been working on doing this, and again, this is a complete evolution. I feel like I learned something every day on how I can continue to build my personal brand or showcase myself in a new way. So before it was just one view. So maybe people just saw you a little bit one-dimensional, like you only had work, and then people knew you at home, and they were very much divided. Well, now those things are very much coming together, probably more so than ever with many of us the last pandemic years working from home. You are actually dropping your work life into your personal life. So it definitely became a different story. And really, that's where these stories begin to merge with each other. And that's when we started sharing more of our stories. So really taking this one-dimensional view and bringing together more of a storytelling. And that's when you can start bringing in each one of those elements of who you are and the things that you do that are unique and how they even relate to each other. Just dropped in a quote, and it was hard. This part was kind of a bummer. I was trying to find a quote from a woman, and many of the quotes were from men. So I'll keep looking. I know there's more, but this one is definitely one that rings true for me when you're trying to think, well, what's the value of creating this personal brand? Why am I thinking about this? And really, one of the ways that I've thought about this is a little bit around what Jeff Bezos is saying here. Your brand is what people say about you when you are not in the room. So what are people saying about you when you might not be in that meeting, or you didn't make that holiday dinner? And so how do you consider that when you're building your personal brand and thinking about your why? Like, why are you doing this? So then on the next slide, we will walk through, where do you start? So the place that I started on this is really a couple different steps, 5 steps to consider. And again, I just wrote consider because if you go and Google this, you're going to find tons and tons of information. There's definitely people who are way more qualified probably than me talking about personal branding as well. I'm one of the recipients of those different frameworks and different steps to consider. So here are a couple that I thought that were super useful as I went through this process. So number one is really around embracing your uniqueness. So with that, you want to identify your attributes. You want to uncover your core brand attributes by listing 5 positive qualities that describe you. And if you're having a challenge, do this. Start asking some of your trusted advisors. Ask your friends, ask your husband, ask your colleagues, and I bet they will quickly start naming off positive qualities and attributes of you, and maybe ones that you didn't even consider or thought of right away. So that is definitely going to be one step in this process to really be able to embrace who you are and what makes you unique from the rest of the group. And so the next piece is around what do you want? So of course, what do you want from building this personal brand? What is your goal of doing this process? So you want to define your goals. What does success look like to you in this process? And then you want to define your goals by thinking broadly about what you want out of your career. And as you saw from my introduction, like professional and community is really close to me. And I do have moments where those either overlap or I gain different attributes. I get to flex different attributes dependent on where I am working, for example. So what I might bring to Girls on the Run is going to be a little bit different than I may be bringing to Salesforce. So definitely allows me to take those things that make me unique. And if I can't use it all in one place, I can use it in different places, which really allows you to be able to show up and bring your whole self to your personal brand. And then finally, or 3 on this list is what do they want? So who are you creating this for? Like, do you have an audience that you want them to learn more about you? And you want to be able to tell that story about yourself quickly and easily. So you want to curate your audience. So for example, again, kind of taking the idea of I don't want to say 2 personalities, but 2 kind of elements of where I show up is in my professional workplace, and then even probably elements within my professional workplace. So an example I can give you of what does an audience might want and how it might be different is I do a lot of presentations at industry conferences. And so when I'm doing that, I may be showing up with a different curation of my personal brand and what they may be looking for, whether it's from how I am at Salesforce or even at Girls on the Run. And this is going to allow you to really be able to craft that message and make any changes, and then ultimately attract the right people to your personal brand by just researching a little bit more about that target audience. And then 4th on this steps to consider is going to be around telling your story. We all have a story. I've heard many speakers talk about this, women who have been, looking at women and saying, tell your story. And women are like, oh, I don't know my story. Or maybe it's not that exciting. It is. It's your story. It's unique. And I think the piece is you don't need to tell people every single part of your story. You pull out the parts that tie to your uniqueness, what you want, and what you want people to hear. So craft that mission statement that communicates the value you bring across all the different touch points you have and all the different people you interact with. And then finally, on steps to consider as you start your promotion strategy. You're probably like, oh man, you have me doing a story and now I need to promote it. It's hard. This is definitely a hurdle that I had to get over making the shift to Salesforce and working remotely. You have to promote yourself. It's uncomfortable at times, but if you find the right way to craft that message, it ends up being a little bit easier. And you start to find that people really get to learn more about you, and new opportunities may present themselves that folks would have never known you were interested in or qualified for. So really being able to create that promotion strategy around how you are going to share your story and just continue to build and evolve that story and continue to share. And some of the places that this can happen through is like, okay, well, where do you promote yourself? It could be online, it could be your LinkedIn profile, it could be at networking events like these or industry conferences, or even just in your day-to-day meetings at work as well. So those are all different places where you can consider being able to tell that story in that first 5 minutes when people are sitting down at a meeting. Tell people a little bit more about what makes you excited. What are you working towards? And that's going to help continue to pull out your personal brand and story, and people are going to remember. So I've walked through the 5 steps to consider. The next piece is really providing a framework, this triangle. And again, there's no shortage of probably different frameworks that you could use, and you may even want to plug in a little bit more into each one of these. But if we start at the top, we're looking at your purpose. So one way to think about a purpose could be, what really just tugs on your heartstrings, or something that you are excited about, or you always leave feeling good once you do XYZ. So perhaps your purpose could be around, I want to continue to educate myself, learn and grow, be part of a women's group of executives in Charlotte, and continue to learn from those folks. And these can change, like that might just be an element of it, but you want to create what your purpose is. And then the next step here is going to be around your core values. Core values for me is going to be around continued growth, trust, accountability, are some that are top of mind that for me when I think of my core values. And then the next layer is where we kind of had this in the previous slide on the considerations, is identifying your strengths and your skills. So there are people who are resilient. There are people who continue to show up to events like this to learn more and to continue to grow. Those are strengths and skills that become where you find things that make you unique. And then credibility is going to be in the proof points. So this is where I said it went from words to proof. This is where it's going to show how does this personal brand, how do I know it's real? Well, I know it's real because Rachel is part of the community, because she is giving hours of her time to Girls on the Run. And so that's a credibility proof point to say, okay, she is part of this. This is how she shows up here. Or it could be, maybe you're at work and you're a mentor for some other colleagues, and that could be another proof point that's showcasing the credibility that you bring when you're saying, I'm a relationship builder, I am a mentor, and continuing to see young women succeed. And that's where those proof points will show up. And then the tangible brand elements, and this is going to change person to person. I feel like some of my brand elements are tied to things like the logos that I show on that first introduction. Salesforce is a brand that I'm tied to and that I represent. Same with Girls on Run. You could also have your own personal brand if you are a consultant or an entrepreneur. Like that is going to be your tangible brand elements. So those are a couple of things when you think of creating a framework that you could start walking through and start plugging some ideas into to ultimately just brainstorm about your personal brand. And so I think I just have one more slide. I was going to look in the questions too. So the next steps, I left with 3 things. So one, it's really around reflection, and hopefully some folks will ask some questions too that we can talk about, because I'm sure there are things I missed in a quick session here. But definitely reflect on what we have said today. And then of course, ask your trusted advisors. There are no shortage of people who have made their entire business on creating and coaching people on personal brands. So again, you can go on Google and probably be inundated with lots and lots of information. And then the next one, really review the 5 steps to consider. I'm also totally open. I'm sure we share all of our information with each other after this workshop, but I would love to hear what was missing, what you would add in those steps to consider. And then finally, build out your framework. And then hopefully after building out the framework, and you can get to a place where you are starting to, tweak that LinkedIn profile, tweak that website. Maybe it's tweaking your bio that's in your professional profile at work. Those are all going to be areas that you can start promoting this new or evolved personal brand that you're trying to represent. And I'd add at the very end, I probably should add a fourth. It takes practice. I think we're always learning and we're always continuing to evolve and improve like how we want to show up. And yeah, end of day, I think practice is a big part of it, learning from others, being open-minded for feedback, and then continuing to evolve as we go. But I am, again, super thankful to be here. I think I scooted through this content quite quickly. So I have one final slide, I think, in here, hopefully. Is thank you. So I know that there's a couple of questions in the chat. So Ginger, if it makes sense, I can just read those off. Great question. Cora, I think so. I've seen people come in and out of Salesforce as well, or even at previous employers. And you have to, right? You are a different person. You've got this whole other person that you are raising. And so I think how that comes across, hopefully you can find, I think step one in this is find other moms and see how they've gone through this process. And I bet they've got some tips and tricks that they could potentially provide as well to say, hey, when I made this shift, came back from maternity, it was probably a little bit of a bumpy road along the way, but once you catch your footing, this is how you can then evolve and continue to have that strong professional brand and show up the way you want, but then also very much respect it, know that you've got this personal element that's continuing to change and grow. And that's a big part of who you are as well. So I know you've been at that company for a while, but I think that's even one part to be able to showcase and lean that they know really who you are as a professional, and they should be excited to see how you change when you take on this next big role in your life. So I would continue to ask those other moms and then continue to start bringing this personal part into your professional brand as well.
Well, thank you. Well, let's go back to this question from Bailey. It came in at the beginning of your presentation. And Bailey says, should my personal brand at work be different from authentic me?
This is a toughie, right? And I think it's ever changing for different organizations. So I would say, I'm not going to say, oh yeah, it's easy. You can just bring your authentic self to work. And that's what everyone is doing. I think we're trying to get to that. And I think, Bailey, we want to be authentic at work. We want to bring that authentic me to work, and it should be accepted. And so I think as this group of women, we want to try and push and advocate for that in our professional work lives. You shouldn't have to be two completely different people. Am I saying it's easy though? I think it's also an evolution of being able to merge these two things together. And I would push the people that you trust around your organization to support bringing your authentic self. Because ultimately, if you're not, I feel that you might not be at the right, you're not finding the best match for you, perhaps, and that's going to be uncomfortable. So again, find those great advocates for you, and then hopefully continue to advocate for yourself to bring that authentic self. I mean, I just love all the questions that have come through so far. So I really appreciate that. Love the engagement, and just again, Ginger, really excited that I was able to come, and hopefully people were able to think about this in a different way and give it a shot. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Hey, my friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, be sure to rate, review, and share your biggest takeaway. And if you're wanting more, you can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. You can also get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or networking group near you. Or if you just need to access your membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Because here at Women Leaders Association, we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. That's all for today, my friends. Bye for now.